This is WFYI News Now. It's December 10th, and I'm Abriana Herron. On today's show, the sudden outcome of a civil trial against former Indiana attorney Curtis Hill, a new ethics committee and code of conduct for the Indiana Democratic Party, and a research project that could improve population control regulations for white-tailed deer in Indiana.
Looking and not seeing an animal somewhere doesn't mean the animal is not there.
Those stories coming up. But first, Indiana football fans won't have to travel far to see the Hoosiers in the opening round of the college football playoffs. IU will play Notre Dame on Friday, December 20th at 8 p.m. While the schools meet regularly in most other sports, it will be their first meeting on the football field since 1991. IU head coach Curt Cignetti says he's looking forward to taking on what has been historically the premier program in the state.
I think it's a great game for the state in general, for Indiana and Notre Dame to be playing in the college football playoff. I think the series began in 1898, and Notre Dame has pretty much had the upper hand.
Both teams finished their regular season 11-1. Notre Dame was seeded 7th in the playoff bracket, announced on Sunday. Indiana earned the 10th seed and was one of 4 Big Ten teams selected for the 12-team playoffs. IU faced a lot of skepticism about being selected for the playoffs, mainly because of its strength of schedule. The Hoosiers had 0 wins over ranked teams, but Cignetti has been outspoken about his team's ability, citing its average margin of victory, which is among the best in the country.
That's all in the past. Our eyes are forward right now on what we got to get done in terms of preparation for the next opponent.
Notre Dame won the last meeting between the teams 49-27. A civil trial over groping allegations against former Indiana Attorney General Curtis Hill has been canceled again. This time, it seems for good. Hill was accused of groping more than half a decade ago by 4 women: former state representative Mara Candelaria Reardon, Gabrielle McLemore, Nikki De Silva, and Samantha Lozano. The Indiana Supreme Court found Hill criminally battered the women and suspended his law license in 2020. A federal lawsuit by the 4 women against Hill was dismissed. A state civil trial was set to begin in April, but was postponed. The trial was again set to begin Monday, but was again canceled. This time, the parties have reportedly agreed to dismiss the case. The Indiana Democratic Party has adopted a new code of conduct and formed an ethics committee. Indiana Public Broadcasting's Brandon Smith reports that comes in the wake of several dozen party members demanding action after sexual harassment allegations against another Democratic official.
The code of conduct adopted by the state party's Central Committee covers bias, discrimination, and harassment. It applies to anyone affiliated with the party: elected officials, candidates, volunteers, official members, staff, interns, and anyone attending a party event. Indiana Democrats also established a new ethics committee that will receive any complaints related to violations of the code of conduct. The committee will develop a process to review those complaints and forward recommendations for action to the state party's Central Committee. Violating the code of conduct could mean warnings, suspensions, and bans. Several dozen women signed a letter in recent weeks calling on the party to act after State Senator Greg Taylor was accused of sexual harassment. Some of the signers of that letter say this move by the party is a good first step. For Indiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Brandon Smith at the State House.
And for our final story today, a research project led by a Purdue University professor could improve population control regulations for white-tailed deer throughout the state. The study aims to better understand Indiana's deer population during times of disease outbreak to create predictable population maps for the species. Patrick Zollner is the lead professor on the project. He says accurately counting animal populations across the state is challenging.
Looking and not seeing an animal somewhere doesn't mean the animal is not there.
The study will use methods including drones, aircrafts, and trail cameras to estimate the population.
If we want to have reliable, quantified estimates of how many individuals of these species we have in different places, we have to use more sophisticated approaches.
The research will also look into the populations of wild turkeys and eastern coyotes in Indiana, as well as the transmission patterns of different diseases. The joint venture between Purdue and Michigan State University will be conducted over 5 years. The $1.6 million project is funded by the Indiana Department of Natural Resources. The researchers will collect aerial data from December until March. That's all for today's episode of WFYI News Now. Our podcast is produced by Drew Daudelin, with support from the news team at WFYI and public media journalists across the state. Our news director is Sarah Neal-Estes. Kendall Antron produced our music, and I'm your host, Abriana Herron. If you like today's episode, remember to subscribe and share, and follow WFYI on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube to check in on our newsroom throughout the day. Thanks for listening. We'll be back tomorrow.